Definitely want to welcome everyone. For those who may be new, this is FICO Friday. My name is Will Roundtree, president and owner of We Management Services, author of the book Credit is King. If you have not gotten your copy of Credit is King, I'm going to continue to say you're doing yourself a disservice. The audio version will be available in the next probably 2 weeks. It got approved by audible.com, so now we're just waiting for it to upload and go to all of the streaming services. So you will be able to get Credit is King via Audible in the next 2 weeks. And of course, we'll do a post to make sure you guys all know that that is live. Also, I am your credit mastery instructor at the J. Morrison Academy, president and co-founder of Easy Funding. And just, I'm here to serve you guys. That is always kind of been my purpose. I always constantly get asked, what drove you to get into credit? And it really just started out as a need for myself. I tell everybody, just sharing my story. I can remember moving to Las Vegas, 2005. I borrowed $500 and I was, living in a weekly. And, I couldn't rent an apartment, couldn't buy a car, of course, without a cosigner. And the driving reason behind all of that was my credit was bad. But of course, I did not know anything about credit at that time. I just know I kept being denied. And that's because, I'm pretty sure like a lot of you guys out there, we've never been taught these things. We've never been taught these principles. And one of the things that I'm always constantly trying to share with a lot of us is that, there's a couple different things in life that we should always make sure that not only we get more information on, but that we become extremely astute. And one of those areas is credit. I'm a firm believer that if you can learn the credit and not just learn it, if you can master the credit game, literally you'll be able to write your own ticket and be able to do pretty much anything you're wanting to accomplish. Not just from a consumer standpoint. See, that's the other thing, that a lot of us have looked at credit from a consumer standpoint. So we have such a huge misconception about credit, how it can be used, why it should be used. People are always trying to debate me. Oh, well, this guy on the internet said credit is bad, this, that, and the third. And I'm like, okay, that's fine for him and where he is in his journey. But as I'm always constantly sharing, for myself and the people in my circle, in my communities, that is not practical. We always say credit levels the playing field. And when you truly understand and master the game of credit, because it truly is a game, you play the game differently, and it gives you a little bit more, as I say, leeway in the things that you want to be able to accomplish. And then the other game that I always tell people you want to learn to master is the tax game. We need to understand that we can't play games when it comes to our taxes, which is why I'm always advocating that we have a tax specialist. I spoke with one of my clients the other day, and he was just like, man, the fact that you educated me to get a tax specialist has done wonders for my business this year. And I always say that because a lot of times our goal is, we want to just write off everything. Well, then what do you do when you and your spouse are trying to buy a home and you've written off all your income and you're showing that you only made $12,000 for the year? Now you put yourself in a situation because, yeah, you may have made $100,000 throughout the year, but you're showing 12 grand. No bank is going to finance you. And then this is when you have to get creative and do different things like that. So this is why you want to have a tax specialist, because these are things that they're going to be prepping you throughout the year. Because generally you want to be preparing yourself for tax seasons 2 to 3 years down the line. Even from a business standpoint, a lot of people may have saw our post about the client who we got the $100,000 line of credit from Amex. Well, understand, for one, that was not an overnight process. My DM box got beat down, people wanting that process. But understand that client's been working with us for about 18 to 20 months. And also understand the importance of filing your business taxes. See, a lot of us we don't file business taxes, either one, because we may not have felt we've shown enough income. But secondly, more importantly, I always say is that we are trying to be in a position where we pay the least amount of taxes, which is fine. Trust me, I'm all about trying to mitigate your tax liability. But keep in mind, when your business is not showing income, it's harder to get the larger lines of credit. Just to put you up on some game and how underwriters underwrite bank applications. When we send a client to banking for a business line of credit, some banks look at 10% of the gross revenues of that company. So if you did $10,000 after all your expenses, you're only going to get a line of credit for 10% of what that business cash flow. So we have to be extremely careful about how we are mitigating our tax liability. Again, even furthermore, why I always recommend we have a tax specialist, because there are different things in certain ways to expense a lot of your expenses to where it still mitigates your tax liability, but it still shows your company as being profitable. So, and again, no knock. And when I say tax specialist, I'm just speaking from the terms of someone who works with clients and small businesses in tax strategies from the standpoint of the benefits of why you want to have an LLC, why you want to convert potentially your LLC to a S corp by filing I forgot the form, a 1053 or something like that. So it's all about strategy, and it all depends on what your long-term goals are. And that's really what it all boils down to. It's about your long-term goals. So when you're sitting down with a specialist, whether credit, tax, real estate specialist, or whoever, everything is going to be predicated on what your long-term goal is. And then, of course, the short-term goals will definitely be in that mix. So a couple things before we get into our topic, just talking about, easy funding. Still been getting a lot of people reaching out to us questioning, well, should I sign up for easy funding? Is it for my business? I don't know if it'll work for me. The thing I'm going to tell everybody is that easy funding is for everybody. If you're trying to start a business, if you're trying to scale your business, if you're trying to grow, if you are going into your slow seasons and you need to be able to have some working capital to be able to pay your staff or marketing or whatever the case is, yes, easy funding is for you. The thing is that, for one, it's non-discretionary. And for those who do not know what that means, non-discretionary means you can use the capital for whatever. So one of the most important pieces for your company is your marketing budget. They have this saying, out of sight, out of mind. If you don't have a marketing budget or you're not doing any form of marketing, nobody know you exist. Word of mouth, benefits you once you are actually out there. So you want to at least be doing some things to get yourself out there from a marketing standpoint. So there are definitely a lot of free platforms, especially social media. I'm a huge believer in social media marketing. But then also, too, depending on your industry, there are other ways that you do have to invest some type of money into your marketing campaign. And even if it is a lot of the online social media marketing, which a lot of it is very inexpensive, the curation of the content is what you may have to invest in. Whether you're curating videos, whether you're putting together, infographics and all these different things that you need to be able to do, is going to cost you something. That's why we need to have things like easy funding in place. And then we also have to understand that getting funded is not an overnight process. Yeah, I understand we're trying to hurry up, close, get some capital and go into real estate. But like I tell everybody, first of all, one property isn't going to make someone wealthy. I mean, from a buy and hold standpoint, you really don't see a huge profit until about, 8 to 10 doors. So it's really just all about, one, being patient. And I think that's where a lot of us who are entrepreneurs, we get so impatient. One, because we either want to leave our jobs. Two, we have a lot going on and we're riding on this easy funding capital and different things like that. And one of the things I always tell people is that when you build a shaky foundation, especially, for all my home builders, building a shaky foundation, eventually your house will collapse. Same thing I always try to relate when it comes to the easy funding. When we're trying to just rush through and just go through and get this capital with no plan, then that's when we dig ourselves into a hole where, we're blaming everybody except us because we weren't coachable during that process. So I always tell people, you know, going through and building a business, it's no expiration date. We really just want to be able to, one, take our time. And while you're taking your time, you want to be using that time to hone in and learn your craft on whatever it is. And that's how you're going to be able to position your company. So bottom line, make sure you go to Use Easy Funding website. That is useeasyfunding.com to get more information about signing up for Easy Funding. I can tell you it's not only changed my business, but everybody who I've known who've leveraged Easy Funding the proper way has gone on and done everything that they set out to do, whether it's building a real estate portfolio, getting their business off the ground, expanding their business, etc., etc. Next thing is, there's three things that I always want us to be conscious about learning. And this is something that, we're going to be talking about more over at the Jay Morrison Academy. And you guys have heard me talk about this, learning our RBCs. But those who do not know what that means, R stands for real estate. The thing I love about real estate is that 70% almost all millionaires have some form of real estate in their portfolio. 70% of millionaires have created wealth through real estate. So the thing that I've learned is that it's okay to be a copycat as long as you copy the right cat. So I want to follow the path of least resistance of how wealth is being created. So the thing I always tell people is you always want to learn about real estate, period. Because we're all a product of consuming real estate. The jobs we go to, it's in a building, that's real estate. The homes we live in, it's real estate. The buildings we send our children to school at, the buildings we go to concerts, and all these things, it's all real estate. So we now have to decide whether we want to be a consumer or we want to be a part of ownership. And so that's why we always need to learn about real estate. B, which stands for business. The thing I always tell people is that whenever you're going into business as an entrepreneur, it's extremely important, one, not only to learn about just the principles of business, but whatever your craft or niche is, you really want to hone in on that and find out what separates you from the pack. The thing, just even like with my main core business, real estate, I have several companies, but credit repair has been kind of like my bread and butter and meat and potatoes of how I really got my leg into entrepreneurship, something I've been doing for the past 10 plus years. And so one of the things I wanted to do to set myself apart is I started educating people. My goal has never been to just, hey, this is why you want to do credit repair, here's our fees, this is our service, da, 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 da. People don't care about that. People want to know how can you help them in their situation. So what I wanted to do was be able to educate people. And so every time I'm sitting down with someone who's starting their business, I always say, find a way to educate people about your service or your product. Because when you educate a consumer, now you have a more enlightened consumer who's willing to purchase with you. And so the thing about business is that all business concepts are parallel. That is why a lot of serial entrepreneurs and people who own multiple businesses who have been successful in one vehicle usually thrive in other vehicles because the principles are parallel. So when you learn business, literally you can go into any field and excel. And then of course the C, the credit. The credit is the foundation. The credit is going to be able to help you to maximize real estate, is going to be able to help you maximize in your business because one, it affords you leverage, which leverage affords you to get access to capital, which is unfortunately one of the reasons why most people fail in business is a lack of access to capital. And with having a lack of access to capital, one, we put ourselves in positions to where we also maximize our rate of failure because we can't get off the ground, because we don't have a marketing budget. We're thinking some angel investor is just going to come and save our company. And I'm always saying, we need to become the architects of our own destiny. We need to become the architects of our own journey, and also too, be careful what you wish for. I spoke with someone recently who who has an investor on deck, but the investor wants 75% of their business. And I'm like, why would you relinquish 75% of your company? Essentially you bought yourself a job. And so, not that it's no knock against that, but if this is your intellectual ideal, why would you mortgage your legacy? Why would you mortgage your family's legacy, of what that company could turn into? And this is why I push and I so wholeheartedly believe in easy funding, because a lot of times we're mortgaging our businesses for a little bit of capital. I can remember one of my very first companies, I had an investor invest less than $5,000 and I relinquished 60% of that business. One, because I didn't know any better, and two, I assumed I was desperate. And I was just so happy to find an investor that I gave them 60%. And so we got to be careful about these type of things, and not that it's anything wrong with investors, but I'm just a believer that you want to be able to control the cards, meaning build up your company first. And then if you did need some investment capital, you want to be the one that's saying, you know what, my company is already profitable. So no, I'm not willing to relinquish ownership of my company. It's no way I would give up, over 50% to someone because now I'm working for them. So we definitely want to be careful about that. And so I said all of that really just to segue into, our topic, the importance of family credit, or family credit and the importance of it. And the thing that, I always try to talk to in terms with a lot of individuals is that, when it comes to credit, sometimes we don't think outside the box. And I get it. We've been conditioned to have tunnel vision. We've been conditioned to just have one narrative in life. We've been conditioned to think that it's one way and that's it. There was a study done with some ants, and they put an ant on a piece of paper and drew a circle around the ant. And the ant would not walk outside that circle because it felt it was captive. A lot of times that's how our mind has been conditioned. All they have to do is step across the line, and so in relations to business and credit and real estate and all of that, the important factor about family credit gives us that ability to step outside that circle. And what I mean by that is that a lot of times I've had people come to me and, they want to get their business started. They've educated themselves by either going to my YouTube channel or enrolling in the academy, or, doing a consultation with us. And they say, you know what, Will, everything looks good, but my credit is not in position. And so, and I always say, well, who in your circle do you know that has good credit, or that's the closest to having good credit? And they've never thought about that. And I'm trying to tell them, look, you don't have to put your dreams on hold. Create a partnership. Make sure you have everything on paper. And then I'm going to give you guys some tips on when you do a partnership, with how you want to structure that. But have someone who can come on as a partner and leverage their credit. And of course, it's going to take some buy-in on your part, because you may have something that they may not be interested in. And so, and this is the other portion of when it comes to talking about business, and understanding that a part of business is you want to start to, personally develop into who you are looking to become. What I mean by that is that if you were a knucklehead in high school, that's how people are going to view you probably today. And if you're coming to them saying, hey, I'm about to start a business, remember, they remember who you used to be. So if you haven't been working on yourself and aren't allowing people to see that change in you, it's going to be very hard to get the buy-in from them, for them wanting to be your credit partner. And so this is why they always say you want to work harder on yourself than you do on your business. And I always share my story that I can remember, within my 15 years of being in entrepreneurship, just the amount of personal development that I was going through. And I can remember for 5 years, I didn't own a television. and people would laugh, but it was something that I was doing for myself, and so I did it because I wanted to sacrifice things that were not going to give me any return on investment in my mental state for me to be able to be a better person so I can get people to buy into my vision. And so you want to work harder on yourself than you do on your business, because the business portion, that's the easiest part. One, by creating systems and different things like that. But the thing is that, why you want to work on yourself is what do you do when you get that first thing that doesn't work out and you invested everything that you have to making this one thing pop? How do you handle that? And so if you're not personally developed, that can mentally take you out. And so understanding, for people to be able to buy into your vision, they first have to buy into you. And so when looking to build with family credit, that's one of the reasons why you want to work on yourself, because you want to get them to want to say, you know what, I can see myself doing that. And so now with that being said, the first thing I always do is say, you want to take inventory of everyone within your family credit. King J talked about, let's start using, the family gatherings as means of talking about family wealth, becoming the CEO of our last name, as opposed to spending the family gatherings gossiping about the relatives who aren't there. Again, that brings no return on investment into the family. And so by doing so, you should know what the credit scores are of the people within your network. And in this scenario, I'm going to even say family and even business partners or friends, because eventually they do become your family. And the reason that's important is because someone has an amazing idea, they have proof of concept, everything is in place, they get right down to it, and they have a lack of capital. How dope would it be to be able to go to your spouse, to go to your parents, your uncle or whatever, and say, you know what, I believe in your dream, so let's leverage my credit and put together some numbers on what my return would be on that. And see, and the thing is when you have a credit investor, that doesn't mean everything is 50-50. There are different percentages in equity stakes in how you would devise the returns on that individual. They could be leveraging their credit just from a short-term standpoint. So it's really important and crucial that we understand that putting ourselves in position. See, everything is really all about positioning. Even from a standpoint, in business, you will take losses. We just have to understand that. I talked about in my TED Talk, the power of failure. You will fail, and many times. And once we can understand that, we just go through those progressions that much faster. And so with that being said, you could potentially be in a situation, and I actually have a client going through this right now, where he recently had to file bankruptcy. A deal didn't go right. A couple things got backed up, and his creditors are coming after him. But he was so unfazed because of everything that he's learned about business. And so there's this thing that a lot of wealthy people do, that a lot of people, a lot of individuals aren't educated enough on. And this individual filed bankruptcy. All he was doing was protecting his assets. He wanted to make sure they couldn't come after his home, all his personal belongings. He filed bankruptcy just to protect his assets, but guess what? His business did not stop. You want to know why? Because he had been working on his wife's credit for the past year and a half, getting everything ready for her, had gotten her some funding, and so now he's able to still go out there and run the business with his wife and leverage her. Because it wasn't that it was a lack of his inexperience. It was just sometimes, you catch a bad one. And in his case, the contractors walked out on the job, which is one of the reasons why I always tell people you never pay your contractors in cash. So just a little FYI. So he was able to still run and thrive, and was still able to successfully be able to complete some projects So they still had some money coming in, but the business just didn't die. And he said, you know what, Will, if something happens to my wife's credit, guess what? We got our two children who's in their mid-20s. We've been working on their credit as well since they were 16 years old. And while we are still running the business off my wife's credit, getting my two children in position, he's going through credit repair or once the bankruptcy discharges, so now he can get back in position. See, again, it's all about positioning. So this is when I talk about thinking outside the box. Now, again, some of us may not be in position to have family members like that, and I get it. And again, this is where a part of business, your networking reach. Why that's so important? Because no good deal, no good project will ever go unfunded. But as I always ask all my clients, why would I do business with you? Why would someone want to do business with you? And so you have to be, positioned and in a way to where people would want to do business with you. And so that could mean a couple different things, so I'll, leave that for another topic, but just understanding that's why personally developing is so important. So that's one benefit of leveraging your family credit. Now, let's say you have a huge project you're working on. You went through easy funding and we've gotten you, let's say, $100,000. Okay. But the deal that you needed, that the deal you're looking at doing, or the deals, you're going to need to be able to curate a little bit more capital. Again, this is when tapping into your family's credit, your partner's credit, or your credit partners, could be extremely important. So imagine if you had three other partners, three other family members that you got an additional 100K over, let's say it took us 18 months to go through that entire process. And some people say, man, it's going to take 18 months. I'm like, what you going to be doing over the next 18 months anyway? If you did nothing, you'll be in the exact same position you were 18 months prior. So we have to stop looking at time as if it's this bad thing. When it comes to, building success, understand time is on our side when we're doing the activity. But I think sometimes we get so, discomfort with thinking the time is going to be so long, because a lot of times when we're looking at trying to create some level of success, we're looking at, oh, I want to be able to do this so I can do that. We're sometimes so much looking at the stuff we can do or buy from the success as opposed to just enjoying the journey. And again, this is why sometimes it puts us in a scenario where things don't go right, because we don't have the proper vision on the goal. And so understand that, yes, you want to take your time when you're going through the process, because one, you want to have all your strategies in place, and two, you want to make sure that you've literally learned your craft of whatever it is you're trying to do. So going back to this example, you got 100K, you got three of your credit family partners that got another 100K, so now you're at $400,000. There's not much you can't do with access to over $400,000 in capital. And understand that 400K can easily turn into 800K, because you use just a little bit of that capital over time, pay it back. The reason why I love access to revolving credit is because you can always go back and ask the bank for more. See, if you get a check for $100,000, you go flip your deal, pay that $100,000 off. You might make let's just say a $5,000 profit out of that. Okay, so now you've paid the $100,000 loan off. You're back at square one, because all you made is $5,000 in profit. $1,000 profit. Well, guess what? Now you have $105,000, because that revolving credit is now available again. So that's the benefits of having your family credit in position. And so that's another scenario of why you want to position your family as credit investors or credit partners. Or it could be a situation where you found the deal of a lifetime. Your credit is bad, but you got the company set up. You have the intuition. You've learned everything about real estate investing. You know everything to a T. You know how to properly evaluate a deal. You know how to calculate a cap rate, all that stuff. To be able to go to someone and say, look, my credit is not in the best position right now. I know you have a 700 plus. If I can show you how to get a 12 to 10% return on your money, would you be willing to go into business with me on this property and let me get you a return by leveraging your credit? And the thing about when they say numbers don't lie, when you're able to show somebody the numbers, now you have a credit partner. Your deal gets funded. You guys, figure out what that exit strategy is going to be. You got them their return. Guess what? You have an investor who's going to want to invest again. Meanwhile, hopefully you're working on your credit during that process, because now once you get ready, now you guys have that much more capital available to go and do even more and larger deals. So that's another huge benefit of your family credit. Now, another component of leveraging your family credit, before we go into some Q&A. And I briefly talked about this in, I think, one of the previous FICO Fridays. And this is something that's been near and dear to me for a while, is educating our loved ones who are away on vacation. And for those who may not know what that means, for those who have loved ones who are incarcerated, see, the thing about, about when you have someone who's incarcerated, a lot of times when they're coming home, they are at a disadvantage from a standpoint of getting back into corporate America. But a lot of individuals who come out are naturally entrepreneurs. They picked up skills that they can go out and put to use. But they may not understand entrepreneurship in the magnitude that we do, because we've been out in the world, we've tested waters, we've been educating ourselves, we've tried and tested and all of that stuff. So imagine how powerful could it be where you're helping your loved one who's incarcerated fix their credit. And I always share this story because I have a good friend of mine who's going to be about 4 months shy of doing 16 years. And so a few months back, we started talking, sent him a copy of my book, changed his entire mindset just about credit. He had no idea. When he went in, he was telling me that his credit was just, he knew nothing about credit, And so we were able to get his credit pulled, took a look, and found out that he really didn't have much on there. See, a lot of times individuals who've been away for a while, they usually sometimes have blank profiles because everything is so far past the statute of limitations and nothing is on their reporting potentially or possibly. And so all we had to do was, add some authorized users on his report. Now he has a 730 plus credit score. And so the last conversation we had, we're talking about he wanted to find out where his update is at, this, that, and the third. And he just broke down, started crying. I was like, man, I've never, ever had over a 600 credit score. And so now he's been empowered to where when he gets out, which is in about a week or so, his main goal is he wants to start his own business. And one of his first businesses is starting a food truck. One of the skills he picked up was culinary. He's been cooking for about 3-4 years. And so how powerful now is it for him to where he gets out, we set up his LLC, get his company right, and from that day forth, once the ink is dried on the paperwork with the Secretary of State, we can immediately send him through easy funding, give him a couple, even if it's 20 or 30,000, and he can go and start his business. That's why family credit is so important, because there's an entire population of individuals, our loved ones, who we could be able to equip and arm them with this type of information. Again, this is why I say why credit can help level the playing field. Credit is truly a powerful tool that when we learn this game properly, there's nothing that we won't be able to do. There's nothing we won't be able to accomplish, or no dreams can go unfunded, as I always say. Now, it doesn't ensure success, but it definitely gives you an advantage of having a higher odds of success because, again, most businesses don't even make it off the ground. You know, they always say one of the richest places in the world is the graveyard because it's full of people who never got to even make an attempt to go after their dreams. It's filled with people who never got to start their businesses, who never got to write their books, who never got to compose that record, who never got to open up that donut shop. And some of it is based off of fear, you know, some of it is based off of the negativity within their circle. Some of it is based off of because they didn't know where they would be able to get the money even just to get a business license. So that's why, again, people, my family, why I'm so passionate about credit, why I'm so passionate about easy funding, and really just equipping us with this information because, you know, I've seen where credit has literally changed families with not only the knowledge that they've gained, but the wealth that they now have been able to start curating. And like that, the good book says, a true man leaves an inheritance for his children. We need to be curating and building wealth for our children, and a lot of it starts with learning these principles about RBCs and, more importantly, credit. So I'll go ahead and open it up for some Q&A. For anybody who just hopped on the live late, we will have this up on YouTube, so definitely make sure if you're not subscribed, go and subscribe to my YouTube channel at Mr. Will Roundtree. Again, make sure you go and pick up my book, Credit is King, on Amazon. The audio version is coming out soon. And then if you have not done so, also make sure you get my wife's book, Note to Self. Part of when I say working on yourself, sometimes we get self-doubt. That's exactly what Note to Self is about. It really helps you to block out a lot of that self-doubt, you know, because we deal with so much negativity all the time, every day. You know, it just remind me of a story when I can remember at my previous employer when I was working a 9 to 5, everybody at my job didn't believe that they could own their own business. And when I told them I was going to start my own business, someone was like, okay, you'll be back. And so just understanding that sometimes we got to have those self-affirmations, and that's what Note to Self does. You can go to ggroundtree.com and pick up hopefully multiple copies because, again, this information isn't just for us. This information is for our family so we can, you know, put our team, our family on the right track and path of success. So what we got, King Daniel?
I would like to learn how to put my adult children in position. How do I go about doing
So,
so?
very good question. You want to learn how to put your adult children in position. One of the things I would do is first you want to know where are they currently from a credit standpoint. If you guys meet frequently, I would even be having masterminds, meaning you all get together, whether if it's even just once a month or once a quarter, and you're mapping out goals and all of that stuff. And from that point, knowing where their credit is at, if they need credit repair, of course, we do offer credit repair services. If they just need trade lines to boost their score, I always tell people, first just reach out to us or someone, a credit specialist, and get a consultation, find out what their credit needs. But that's where you would start to be able to get them in position, and that credit specialist will be able to give you a blueprint of execution to let you know what they need to do to execute those goals.
How can I get a consultation with you?
You can give us a call at the office at 844-JOIN-JMA, or send me an email, will@jmorrisonacademy.com, and I'll make sure my team reaches out to you and we can get you scheduled for a consult.
Should I continue to keep trying to put people in a position that aren't mentally ready yet?
Absolutely. That's a very good question. They say if you share a good idea long enough, eventually it'll fall on good ears. See, sometimes people just aren't ready. It's not their season. Or as I say, they don't have a pain point strong enough. But trust me, when that pain point gets strong enough, they'll be beating down your door. So definitely keep dropping that information on them. As I say, keep dripping on them, and just keep shining through your greatness. And eventually, you'll convert some of them.
It's my understanding that with easy funding, it comes in the form of credit cards. How do you get the cash off of the cards?
It's a form called liquidation, but that's why you want to go through easy funding, because we do a monthly mentorship call, which I actually do the mentorship call, and we talk about those different strategies. And not every single scenario leads you to have to get the cash off the card. So that's not true in every single instant. There's been a couple times where people assumed they had to do that, but they did not have to, and they were still able to curate that capital. And I just want to speak to that real quick before we go to the next question. And a lot of times, again, because we've been taught to look at credit from a consumer standpoint, think about it. The credit cards are really just a tool. And I always tell people, because some people say, well, I don't want to get credit cards or this, that, and the third. And I'm like, okay, you don't have to go that route. But the other thing that I want you to look at, that is the easiest form of capital to get access to. Think about it. It's unsecured, which means you're not putting up any collateral, and you can use stated in household income. We've had people who don't even have a job who have been able to go and get capital through easy funding and be able to go and buy their first rental property, which I think sometime next week, I actually want to get one of my clients on who was in that position. We bought it. He was able to buy his first rental property, went through easy funding, had lost his job, but because he had been working on himself mentally, was still able to get his first income property, investment income property. So don't look at it from a consumer standpoint. We need to understand it's just a form of capital to be able to open up doors for us to be able to use that capital for whatever it is we want to use it for.
Can you explain the difference on credit scores versus interest paid on a 30-year mortgage? Pretty much on the JMA Mastery course, your example was interest or the total amount of the principal plus pay or plus interest.
I'm not particularly familiar with what you're talking about. That may be something King J had talked about. So I'm not 100% sure on what he's referring to, he or she. But I can tell you that your credit score can determine your interest rate. So, but yeah, that would be something that that King J probably had discussed.
Can you share some examples of some ways credit has utilized or has been utilized by your clients to fund real estate deals?
Using easy funding. I mean, that's the layup and the alley-oop of a lifetime. So again, going back to my client who I'm saying we're going to have on as a guest here soon, he was able to literally start from having zero capital, went through easy funding, got some capital, and we got his first investment property. So that's the number one way how credit is leveraged to be able to get into real estate. And all our coaching clients have bought in real estate through easy funding and never had to spend one dime of their own money except the initial investment to get into easy funding.
What's the difference between getting a home from a bank or a direct lender? And in your opinion, which one is better?
It doesn't matter which one is. It's not which one is better. It's where you're gonna get the best deal. And so it also depends on if it's an investment property or if it's a primary residency. So there's so many different. That's such a loaded question or a kind of a vague question. Most of the times, you're not getting the home directly from the bank. You're gonna have to go through a realtor or a wholesaler. So I can tell you that from an investment standpoint, I prefer to deal with wholesalers because you're gonna get off-market deals, usually below market value.
Can you get easy funding with the repo?
You want to get the repo cleaned off. So let's not skip steps. Take the time, get the credit cleaned up. Because this is how we have to understand from an investment standpoint, meaning you're an investor. Why would a bank give you 50, 60,000, but you have a repossession on your report? And trust me, I understand life happened, but banks don't care about our issues and situations. They don't care if we co-sign for somebody. So I always tell people it's easier just to get the repo cleaned up as opposed to trying to work the system because the banks don't care about those things. But yes, you definitely want to get that repossession cleaned up. and it is extremely doable.
Can you use easy funding if you do not live in the United States?
Good question. If you have a U.S. citizenship, yes. We've had a couple clients who live abroad who have gotten easy funding because you do have to have a U.S. Social Security number. We have had a few people that's had an I-10 number who are not U.S. citizens, but they're going through the process, and we've been able to get them some capital. So it really just depends on your situation.
How soon before a consultation with you should I have my credit pulled?
You want to pull your credit today, and you want to definitely have it at the time of the consult because one, that's the purpose of the consultation, to give you a plan of action. So that way, nobody's wasting their time and you got to schedule another call back. You definitely want to have your credit reports ahead of time.
So how exactly does easy funding work?
Easy funding, first let's go to the website. Use easyfunding.com. That's easyfunding.com. Essentially, in layman's terms, you're taking your personal credit along with your business, and we are taking you to our banks where we are applying for credit in your behalf. Now, if your company is less than 2 years, most of it is going to be credit cards and personal and business credit cards, a combination of both. Now, the thing I always tell people is that I don't care if it's personal or business, it's the bank's money. And I'm going to use it as such because I already have plays in place for me to be able to recoup my return on my investment. Once your business gets 2 years old, then we can start taking you to get business lines of credit. So I want everybody to understand most banks want you to be in business 2 years before you can do business lines of credit.
What is your opinion on the Atlanta market? Do you feel that it's oversaturated with investors and wholesalers?
Very good question. I'm going to say that Atlanta is definitely a market where you have a lot of savvy individuals, but there are still some good deals out there. We just have to look harder and making sure we're in the right circles and getting access to the proper information. I mean, shout out to my brother out in Atlanta, Evan Hooker. I mean, he's been killing the game. I mean, if you guys don't follow Elamar Real Estate on Instagram, I mean, he just posted a gem he found. And keep in mind, sometimes, like when you're in a market, don't always assume you have to find a property just in Atlanta. Keep in mind, Atlanta overall is, other sub-cities that surround the city where people also call Atlanta. So don't be scared to find a property 30 minutes out because some people are willing to go out there. So there are still some gems out there. We just got to do a little bit more due diligence.
Are you able to secure funding using your personal credit without the banks asking for work history, 3-year tax returns, etc.?
When we are going for just purely revolving credit cards, yes, because a lot of banks do no doc. So yes, it is possible. Like I just mentioned, we had a client who went through who didn't have an income. And we were able to get him some capital. So yes, it definitely can be done. And again, that's one of the benefits of easy funding. We walk you through that process on how to properly do that. And and I always tell people, can you do this yourself? Absolutely. But the results are always going to vary because a lot of times we're doing it without all of the information on how to properly structure ourselves based off of our situation. And so that's why I always tell people that's one of the benefits of going through easy funding.
There's been a lot of talk about the tightening of the capital/credit market. How do you see this impacting the ability to get credit moving forward over the next few years?
So I definitely think that things can tighten up, but this is why we want to have good credit. See, the thing is that banks only make money by lending money, but they make more money when people have bad credit. The tightening of the banks only apply, the tightening of the banks in funding and lending usually affect people with bad credit more than people with good credit. So which is why it is harder when you have bad credit to get access to anything. And when you do, you're going to pay 3 times, sometimes more than that. I mean, I was speaking with somebody the other day who they were trying to get, I get people to reach out all the time and say, hey, I'm trying to get a loan with bad credit. And I'm like, that's kind of an oxymoron, but okay. And I always say, well, why won't you work on your personal credit? And then I'm finding out they're doing things like going to payday loan stores where the interest rate is 500%. So, I mean, the tightening of the lending is going to affect people with bad credit more than anything. So this is why we got to have our credit in position.
I want to use easy funding to start a business in Africa. Is that possible? And if so, how is the money paid back if it is recouped in a different currency?
Good question. Essentially, you would just convert your money to that currency. I actually have a client who was able to do so, and they're doing a lot of stuff over in Asia. And so they get the capital, and just like you would pay repay your bills, i.e. your credit card or your line of credit, is just the conversion of the capital, converting it back to US dollars and paying those bills. So you definitely want to have those strategies in place, but it can definitely be done.
How long does it normally take to clear an inquiry?
One inquiry?
Is it an inquiry?
I mean, if you could just have one inquiry, I wouldn't waste a dispute on that. But for the sake of the question, meaning if you have multiple ones, the process can take anywhere between 30 to 45 days. When it's done ethically, let me say that. When it's done ethically.
How can I get in contact with you in regards to pricing options for your services?
You can go to you can email me, will@jmorrisonacademy.com. will@jmorrisonacademy.com, or you can go to jmorrisonacademy.com, JAYMorrisonacademy.com, and we'll have somebody reach out to you.
Do I wait until they come home from vacation to form their LLC?
That's a good question. So you can, if you're going to be in partnership with them, no, you don't have to. You can just put them on as a managing member. So you don't have to wait till they come home. And for those who don't know what vacation means, that means they're incarcerated. But yeah, you do not have to wait.
Can you access easy funding with less than 1 year left on a Chapter 13 bankruptcy with no payments?
Very good question. It is possible, but it also depends on what the rest of your file looks like. I always recommend to at least attempt to get it removed, because some banks go back 20 years with that bankruptcy, even though it doesn't report on the credit report 20 years. But yeah, some banks, if you do still have it reporting, they'll deny you. But I always say it's at least worth a shot, and if not, if the rest of the file is strong, some banks will still lend to you.
What's the fastest or best way to build your credit to qualify for an FHA?
Very good question. So, fastest way to build your credit to qualify for FHA, first of all, there's a lot of FHA programs where you only need a minimum of a 580. For those who do not know, a 580 is considered poor. Now, to get better rates, you can be at least a 620 to a 640, depending on the lender. So you want to have at least a minimum of 2 to 3 revolving lines reporting, or trade lines. Those could be in a form of a vendor account like My Jewelers that we refer to a lot of people. It can be authorized users. Some banks will also let you use your utility bills and rental payment history as a form of a trade line when you're going through FHA. And then depending on your lender, and this is why you want to go get pre-approved, because you can work backwards. If you have no recent open collection accounts, then they can approve you. So I always tell people, no matter where you are, go get that pre-approval, especially if you're close. If you're like at a 600, go get pre-approved, because they're going to tell you exactly what you need to do to qualify for that home. And don't be worried about one credit pull. I mean, that's not going to drop your score ridiculously. So yeah, go get pre-approved and find out what exactly you need to do to a T to get qualified, because we all need to own a home, period.
I just started my LLC, but my credit is great. Can I still utilize easy funding?
Absolutely. We had a client who business was 3 days old and we got them some capital. So yes, you can definitely do so.
When you sign up for easy funding, how long is it good for?
Well, a year at minimum. We've actually been flirting with the ideal of extending it for 2 years, just because we understand some people need a little bit more time just to get ready. I can tell you, as long as someone's just not dormant and not doing anything, we've been working with a lot of individuals and still being able to help them go through the process. How much time we got left?
4 minutes.
Okay.
Is easy funding just for business startup and real estate, or for personal loans?
Very good question. You can use it in any form you want. Again, it's non-discretionary. So, I mean, I have a client who actually used the capital he got through, quote unquote, the easy funding process, because he needed to be able to pay some medical bills for his ailing father. So, I mean, it worked for him. So you can use it for however you want.
In your opinion, what's the best credit card to apply for with no credit history but high scores?
No credit history but high scores. That's going to vary. I can tell you that most of the time it's going to be like those high C-level credit cards, like a Credit One Bank or First Premier or something like that. So what I would say is that you generally want to probably find an authorized user with a high limit, a strong age, and then a lot of people like to start with a Capital One card because they're pretty liberal when they're doing their lending, and then even going to your bank who you have a relationship with and starting with a credit card with them. So that would be a good starting point. Because a lot of times with those C-level credit cards, the fees are ridiculous, but I mean, you got to start somewhere. I mean, that's how I started. I had to get the Credit One a while, 8 years ago, and start there. So it really just depends.
Is it possible to remove late payments from your credit?
Late payments, it is possible. I always tell people if the account is closed, you can dispute the entire account off. But you want to be careful, because if you have great payment history and it's just one late and that late is 5 years old, it's not worth removing it, because you potentially could be removing the oldest account on your report, which thus can drop your score. Now, if it's on an open account, it is harder to get them removed, but this is where the goodwill letter, which we do talk about the goodwill letter in the book Credit is King. So, yeah, it is definitely possible. Late payments being removed on open accounts do have the lowest rate of success, but it's definitely not impossible.
Should you go get pre-approved for a home if you're already in the easy funding program?
Yes. I actually, when people are going through both processes, I usually tell people to buy their home first. Get your primary residency first. 1 minute. All right, family. So we're coming up on 1 minute. I appreciate you guys rocking out with us today. The time just flew by. Again, make sure you go and subscribe to my YouTube at Mr. Will Roundtree. Pick up the books. Credit is King. Note to self. I will see you guys next week. Hopefully we can get our guest on. I'm going to show you guys how somebody who didn't have no job got easy funding, literally started from zero, and was able to get his first investment property, and 30 days later got his first rental check. So be sure to tune in. FICO Friday. Make sure you guys are sharing this video, and I will see you guys next week, family. All right, peace.